I knew the exact moment my boss stopped believing in me. It wasn't during a performance review or a missed target. It was when his favorite laughed at my slide and he laughed with her. That sound, soft, rehearsed, harmless to anyone else, was the hinge that turned my career the wrong way. I should have seen it coming. People warned me about Jamie the week she joined. She's his shadow, someone whispered near the kitchen while the espresso machine hissed. I shrugged it off. I believed in work. Clean numbers, honest charts. One story told well. For 6 years, that was enough. Then this deal landed, the biggest our fintech had seen in 2 years. A regional bank trying to rip out a knot of legacy systems without bleeding customers. My deck was 62 slides long and looked shorter. No filler. Every page smelled like the server room at 2 a.m., like coffee left too long on a hot plate, like decisions. I built it piece by piece. Churn cohorts, lost curves, a migration calendar with no romance and no mercy. At midnight the Friday before, I set the final version to read only, tagged my boss, Lars, and went home feeling like the last train out of the city, tired but on time. Saturday morning, the doc history showed an edit, small copy fixes. Author, Jamie. I told myself not to care. Sunday, there were 19 edits. Monday at 7:12 a.m., the color scale I'd used to signal fraud pockets, green to amber to red, was replaced with a gradient that looked pretty and meant nothing. She had split my core slide into 3 story beats, moving the scary part, the cash burn exposure, behind 2 paragraphs of strategic optimism. I didn't yell. I closed my laptop, shaved, ironed a shirt, and walked to the office through air that smelled like wet concrete and bus brakes. In the elevator mirror, I looked like a man who believed his work could still talk louder than politics. The doors opened to the 12th floor. The carpet kept secrets. My desk plant had leaves like coins. Slack pinged before I sat down. Lars. Swing by. Need to sync on narrative. Sync on narrative is what you say when you've already chosen one. His door was half open. Jamie sat in the chair I used to sit in, crossed her legs like a bookmark, and smiled, like nothing had ever been difficult. Lars gestured at the table. No hello? No? How was the weekend? We're making a small adjustment, he said, tapping the printout. We lead with brand trust, not technical lift. Relationship before remediation. It's a bank, I said. They make money by pricing risk. We should show them where the risk is and how we quarantine it. That's in here, Jamie chirped, placing a manicured fingernail on the new Appendix B. We'll get to it if they ask. If they ask. I stared at the paper, counted to 5, then 10. We promised to answer it before they needed to. Lars sighed like an actor tired of his lines. Look, I need alignment. The table can only handle one voice. Jamie's going to carry the open. You'll support. Support. The word landed like a wet towel. For 2 months, I had slept beside a laptop louder than my radiator, and now I was being asked to hold the pointer while a favorite held the room. I turned the printout, feeling the heat that printers keep like a memory. The slide titles wore her phrasing like borrowed perfume. North Star, Moments of Magic, Outcomes First. My fraud funnel was renamed Safety Story. The math was still mine, just padded, rounding up savings, rounding down dissent. A bank will tolerate almost anything except padding. Lars, I said quietly, if the risk committee sees the burn window after the optimism, they'll think we're hiding it. His jaw tightened, the muscle twitch people pretend not to notice. I need you to be a team player, Mark. I am. That's why I'm saying this out loud, in this room. Jamie kept smiling, the way people smile when their parachute is packed by someone else. He stood, which was his way of ending arguments. We're wheels up in 40. I expect you both to be aligned. And Mark, he looked at me over the rims of glasses he didn't need for distance. Don't make me choose sides. That sentence did what no data error ever could. It made me doubt him. Not the content, not the client, him. Choose sides between what and what? Between clean numbers and a favored narrative? Between the team that kept the lights on and the shadow that drew on the walls? I didn't trust my mouth, so I nodded. Jamie gathered the printouts and brushed past me, leaving a breeze that smelled like citrus and a promotion. I went back to my desk. The office was waking up the way offices do. Keyboards like rain, a cough down the corridor, someone microwaving eggs they should have kept at home. I opened the dock and watched the cursor blink like a heartbeat I couldn't slow. The version history was a river. Names, timestamps, edits that were just tone until they weren't. An emoji popped up on Slack from a junior analyst. You got this. I typed always and didn't send it. I have a habit when I'm about to walk into a fight. I write the 3 sentences I'll say if everything fails. Not to read, but to live with. I wrote them on a sticky note and slid it into my pocket. 1. We'll start where your risk starts. 2. There's a reason we put this on slide 2. 3. If we can't show it, we can't fix it. At 8:43, the printer in the corridor clattered out the last revised handout. I picked up one packet and felt the staples bite my thumb. The paper cut marked me like a signature. The room we'd booked was already being set. Glass pitchers sweating on a coaster, 12 chairs pretending not to be thrones. Through the wall, I could hear the double doors to reception thump as the client arrived. Their shoes had the fast, light rhythm of people on per-hour retainers. I adjusted the HDMI cable. It was too long and curled like a lie. Jamie glided in, phone in hand. A smile she practiced in elevators. "Don't be weird," she said, soft enough to sound like kindness. "I'm going to tell the truth," I said. "Sometimes that looks weird." Lars stepped in behind her, smoothed his tie as if sincerity were a wrinkle. He looked at me, then at the deck on the screen, and nodded in a way that didn't mean yes. The door handle clicked again, and a line of navy suits and careful eyes filed in, the bank's crest winking from a lapel pin that had seen more rooms than I had. We shook hands in a choreography that made it look like we'd met before. We hadn't. Their head of risk, a woman with a notebook like a shield, sat where my eyes would land first. Good. I wanted her to see the second slide before she decided anything about me. Lars did intros. Titles floated like helium. When he reached my name, he cut the balloon string. Mark will be supporting today's narrative. Supporting. I watched the head of risk pencil something that looked like a question mark, without a dot. Jamie took the clicker. She smiled at a story I didn't believe in and told it like a bedtime I'd never sleep through. The first slide dazzled. The second was not my second slide. The risk window I'd built to be visible early had been tucked behind branding like a bruise under makeup. I felt the sticky note in my pocket as if it had heat. The head of risk tilted her head the way engineers do when you show them a magic trick and call it physics. When Jamie said the words, "moments of magic," the head of risk's pen stopped moving. She looked up. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like she was choosing which tooth to bite with. I cleared my throat and felt my boss's stare before I heard it. The door to the corridor sighed as someone late slipped in. The room smelled like coffee and the kind of air conditioning that dries out truth. Jamie clicked to the next slide, and I watched the numbers I had lived with, the numbers that could have saved this room, shrink behind adjectives that made them polite. The head of risk lifted her pen. "Before we go further, can we talk about the burn window on slide 2? Jamie's thumb hesitated on the clicker like a coin refusing to drop. Lars smiled the way men smile when they hope you'll forget you asked the hard thing. I reached into my pocket and touched the paper cut until it stung. The door to the boardroom swung a little wider, the corridor noise dipped, and I understood exactly how much air I'd have to steal back if I wanted my numbers to breathe. The silence that followed her question was the kind you could weigh. It had temperature, shape, and an aftertaste of fear. Jamie smiled too brightly. Lars adjusted his cufflinks. I could hear the hum of the projector, steady, accusatory, The kind of sound that fills the seconds no one wants to own. Of course, Jamie said, her voice velvet over broken glass. The burn window is managed through a phased migration strategy. It's hidden, I said before I could stop myself. Every head turned, even Lars's. The clicker froze mid-air. My pulse drummed against my collar. I should have waited, but I'd spent 2 months building this truth, and I wasn't going to let it drown in buzzwords. It's not hidden, Jamie said, laughing too softly like a teacher explaining a child's mistake. We just reframed it. The head of risk looked between us. Reframed? I took a breath. Slide 2, my original, showed the exposure period between data transfer and security lock-in. That window is 12 days, not 6. If you don't flag it early, you're flying blind for nearly 2 weeks. The air changed again. The suits stopped breathing in sync. Lars leaned forward. Mark. But the head of risk wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me. 12 days? That's not in the version we received. Because someone moved it, I said. Not loud, just steady. Jamie's smile broke, tiny and sharp. Mark's referring to a draft. We updated the data Sunday night. The model was recalibrated. I turned the laptop toward the screen. No, you changed the scale. The data's the same, but the colors and headers were swapped. You buried the red zone under a different name. Lars's voice came, low and warning. Mark. I ignored him. If this team can't tell you where your real exposure lives, you shouldn't hire us. The projector hummed louder. Someone coughed. Jamie's face had the kind of calm people practice before mirrors. We appreciate Mark's passion, she said, each word sugar-coated in professionalism, but we've already validated the metrics internally. The head of risk turned to Lars. Validated by whom? Lars's throat clicked before he spoke. My analytics lead, he said, nodding toward Jamie. She ran the final checks. I could have laughed. I didn't. I sat back and watched the quiet turn heavy again. The meeting stumbled forward, but the rhythm was gone. Every number after that was a maybe. Every slide was a question. When it ended, the polite applause of handshakes sounded like a post-mortem. In the hallway outside, Lars's hand gripped my elbow. What the hell was that? The truth. You embarrassed the team. I protected the client. Jamie walked a few steps ahead, phone in hand, pretending not to hear. The elevator opened, reflected our faces like a mirror that didn't care. Lars stepped in last, hit 12, and exhaled like someone deflating a balloon. I told you not to make me choose sides, he said, his voice quieter now, more dangerous because of it. You already did, I said. You just didn't tell me. The elevator dinged. Jamie slipped out without looking back. Lars didn't move. You're emotional, he said finally. Take the afternoon. Cool off. I'm fine. You're not. You just called out my direct in front of a client. I corrected misinformation. That's what we do. His eyes hardened. You're lucky I like you. I used to think that meant something, I said. The words came out before I could weigh them. He didn't answer, just walked out, his shoes making no sound on the carpet. I stood there alone, watching the doors close again, the mirror swallowing my reflection like a secret. Back at my desk, the pings started. Jamie, you need to learn boundaries. Jamie, you made us look divided. Jamie, we'll debrief later. Don't make this worse. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the project folder. The version history was still there. Timestamps, authorship, IP logs. Every change from Friday to Monday, color-coded and neat. I exported the audit trail, renamed it Draft Notes, and forwarded it to my private email. Then I sent the same file to my USB, tucked it under a stack of old notebooks, and shut the lid of my laptop slowly, like closing the lid on a confession. At 3 p.m., Lars's assistant called me into a quick sync. HR was there. That's never a good sign. They use the kind of phrases you only hear when someone's already decided your story. Concerns about alignment, tone in client settings, leadership perception. I sat there, hands folded, pretending to listen. Lars kept glancing at Jamie, who sat across the table, taking notes like a court stenographer. She didn't even need to talk anymore. Her silence was doing the work. When they were done, Lars said, "We'll keep this internal for now. Let's frame it as a learning moment." I nodded. "Sure, a learning moment." He smiled with relief, mistaking obedience for peace. That evening the office emptied slowly, leaving the hum of cleaning machines and the faint smell of burnt coffee. I stayed. I reread every email chain from the project, every Slack thread, every timestamp. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just precise. I created a private folder called Insurance and dragged everything in. Old drafts, backup files, meeting notes, even voice memos from late nights when I'd recorded ideas. One of them caught me off guard, my own voice, soft and exhausted, saying, "If they twist this, they'll bury the risk." I saved it. Proof wasn't revenge. Proof was oxygen. At 9:47 p.m., I saw the last message of the day. "Jamie, client follow-up tomorrow at 8, just you and me. Lars wants me to repair trust, repair trust." I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I typed back, "Sure, I'll bring the real numbers." At home, my apartment felt too clean, too empty. I opened a beer I didn't want and sat by the window. Across the street, the building opposite reflected my light back at me. 12 floors of identical windows. For the first time in months, I didn't open my laptop. I just sat there, replaying every detail. Lars's hesitation, Jamie's smirk, the head of risk's frown like a verdict waiting to be signed. That night, I didn't dream. I didn't need to. The real story was already writing itself, and by morning, I would stop being its victim. The next morning, the air in the office felt different, lighter on the surface, heavier underneath. Jamie was already there, standing by the glass wall of the conference room, phone in hand, laughing softly at something on her screen. I recognized the sound. It was the same laugh she'd used when Lars joked about my overly detailed slides. Only now it was sharper, like she'd filed it overnight. "Morning," I said. She didn't look up. "We'll start in 5. Lars might join." Might. That was new. He used to never miss client calls. I took a seat opposite her, the laptop open but the camera off. She liked video on, I didn't. The client joined right on time, audio first, then faces flickering into focus. The head of risk, the ops director, a young analyst whose eyes darted like radar. "Good morning," Jamie said, bright as daylight. "We wanted to revisit the exposure question and make sure we're fully aligned." Aligned. That word again. It had become their shield and my bruise. The head of risk smiled politely. "We appreciate the follow-up, but we've already reached out to another provider for a comparative quote." Jamie froze. "Oh, may I ask who?" "Just due diligence," the head said. "Nothing final." I watched her composure wobble, not fall, just shift. Like a mask slipping half an inch, she tried to recover. "Of course. We'll make sure you have everything you need for an accurate comparison." They nodded. The call ended politely. No raised voices, just the soft sound of doors closing in slow motion. Jamie stayed silent for a full 10 seconds. Then, "You couldn't help yourself, could you?" I looked up. "What are you talking about?" "You humiliated Lars yesterday, and now the client's shopping around. You're toxic, Mark." "Or maybe they just prefer honest math." Her jaw tightened. "You think this company runs on honesty? Wake up. It runs on relationships. You don't win by being right. You win by being invited back." "Then you and Lars should be fine," I said. "You're great at being invited." Her eyes flickered. For a moment I thought she might slap me. Instead she smiled again. That same precise, manufactured calm. "Enjoy your last week." She left the room, perfume trailing behind like punctuation. I spent the rest of the day building a list. Not of enemies, not exactly. Just connections. People who'd seen what happened but hadn't spoken. The junior analyst who pinged me. "You got this." The IT tech who once fixed Jamie's laptop and mentioned she accidentally deleted shared folders twice that month. The operations lead from the client side who had quietly DM'd me after the meeting. Can you confirm the original exposure data? Off record. That message became the first thread in my safety net. At 8:17 p.m., I called her. Off record, I said. The real burn window is 12 days. The model hasn't changed. She didn't sound surprised. That's what I thought. They were too defensive. I can send you the clean version, I offered, not through company channels. Do it, she said, voice low. And Mark, don't use your work email. That call changed everything. Not because it fixed anything. It didn't. But because it reminded me what real trust sounded like. Quiet, practical, free of slogans. For the next week, I built my own timeline. I printed audit trails, backed up calendar invites, even exported Slack logs into PDFs. Every line was time-stamped, signed by software immune to denial. I didn't rant. I didn't gossip. I just watched. Jamie and Lars thought I was shrinking. In reality, I was tightening the net. Friday came. A casual sync invite appeared on my calendar from HR. I arrived early. 2 people I didn't know were waiting, HR director and legal. Lars was late. Of course he was. When he finally walked in, he had the look of a man who'd already decided how the meeting would end. Mark, he started, this isn't disciplinary. We just need to have a transparent conversation about fit. Fit, another corporate coffin word. I've been getting feedback, he continued. You're brilliant technically, but you create friction. People feel tense around you. People or Jamie? He blinked. This isn't about individuals. It's always about individuals. You just prefer to pretend it's structural. HR tried to steer it back. We're offering a transition option, a soft landing, severance plus recommendation. For what? I asked. Telling the truth? For misalignment, Lars said simply. I smiled, not sarcastic, not broken, just small and tired. Then we're finally aligned. I signed the paperwork. Clean resignation, effective immediately. I shook his hand, thanked HR, walked out. But before I left the building, I did one last thing. I uploaded the sanitized, fact-checked version of the deck, my deck, to a neutral third-party consultancy we'd use for compliance audits. I labeled it Client Reference Final V2. No signature, no company logo, just data, truth, clarity. The same night, the ops lead from the client side emailed back one line. Got it, thank you. For the next few weeks, silence. No gossip, no calls, just stillness. I slept for the first time in months, cooked real food, let the noise in my head settle into order. Then one morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hi, Mark. This is Sophia from the client's integration team. Just wanted to let you know. They made their decision. I waited. They went with another vendor, she said, but the proposal was built on your framework, your slides, your math, everything. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled into the phone. Good. Then they're in safe hands. She hesitated. Are you angry? No. Why would I be? The right plan won. After we hung up, I opened my laptop for the first time in weeks. The news was already spreading inside the company. Major client lost to competitor. Internal review launched. And underneath that, smaller whispers. Document tampering, audit trail, mismatch, internal inquiry pending. Jamie's LinkedIn went dark 2 days later. Lars's profile changed titles. Senior advisor, a demotion dressed as a transition. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I just watched from a distance, knowing the dominoes were falling exactly in the order they deserved. What they didn't know was that the client's new partner, the consultancy implementing the plan, had already called me privately. They needed someone who understood the architecture better than anyone else. Someone who'd built it in the first place. That someone was me. When I closed the laptop, the city outside felt different. The air wasn't lighter, but it was mine again. When I walked back into that building 3 months later, no one recognized me. Not because I'd changed, though I had, but because I was no longer walking in as an employee. I was walking in as a partner. Different badge, different company, same project. The new consultancy had won the implementation deal, using the framework I'd built. the same one Lars had buried under buzzwords, and Jamie had wrapped in glitter. I didn't have to steal revenge. It had already found its route through logic and timing. All I had to do was show up. The lobby smelled the same: coffee, printer ink, and ambition. At the front desk, the new receptionist glanced at my visitor tag. "Implementation partner?" she asked. "Something like that," I said. Her smile was polite, forgettable. Perfect. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was slow. I could see my reflection in the mirrored walls. No tie this time. Sleeves rolled up. Confidence quiet instead of loud. I used to fill these seconds rehearsing answers. Now I just breathed. When the doors opened, half the faces in the open plan office froze. They knew me, but didn't know what to do with that knowledge. A few whispered. Someone straightened a chair. I didn't look for Lars right away. I knew he'd find me. And he did? 2 minutes later, at the edge of the hallway, he'd lost weight, or maybe just color. The man who used to walk like gravity owed him favors, now moved like someone calculating each step. "Mark," he said finally, voice caught between surprise and dread. "Didn't expect—" "I'm sure you didn't," I said. He gestured toward his office. "Can we—" "Already have a meeting," I cut in. "Room B12. The same room where I'd been told to support. He nodded once, a fraction of a smile that didn't survive contact with air. "You look good." "So do the numbers," I said, "when they're not being hidden." He didn't reply, just stepped aside. I walked past him, and for a second the silence between us felt like a signed confession. Inside room B12, the client's integration team was waiting. The head of risk, the same woman from that disastrous pitch. Her notebook open again like a weapon disguised as stationery. When she saw me, she smiled. "Glad to have you back," she said. I smiled back. "Glad to be here," this time on the right side of the table. She chuckled. "I heard the internal audit concluded last week." "So did I." Her eyebrow lifted. "Convenient timing," I shrugged. "Truth usually has good timing. It just moves slower than lies." We dove into work. Numbers, migration paths, the sound of clarity filling a room that used to choke on politics. Every data point clicked into place, smooth and honest. By noon, even the air felt cleaner. When the session ended, she closed her notebook. "You ever plan to go back?" "To them?" I said. "No, I already did. Just not in the way they expected." Outside, Lars was standing by the glass wall, watching the meeting end. He tried to look casual, arms crossed, like a man observing traffic, but his reflection betrayed him. Jaw tight, eyes restless. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. Maybe he wanted closure. Maybe he wanted absolution. Either way, he wasn't getting either from me. I gathered my things and walked toward the elevator. The hallway stretched long and quiet. Halfway down, Jamie stepped out of a smaller office. She looked different. Hair darker, smile gone. "Mark?" she said softly. I stopped. "Jamie." "I didn't know you were on the new team. I figured you'd see my name on the contract." She swallowed. "I don't handle contracts anymore." "Right," I said. "Alignment issues?" Her laugh was small and tired. "They made an example out of me." "Don't take it personally," I said. "It was just business." For a second she looked like she might say something human. Then she didn't. She just nodded, eyes shining with a regret that came too late to matter. I left her there, standing in a hallway full of glass and ghosts. In the elevator, I took out the sticky note I'd carried since that day. The paper was soft now, almost translucent at the edges. The ink faded, but still legible. 1. We'll start where your risk starts. 2. There's a reason we put this on slide 2. 3. If we can't show it, we can't fix it. It wasn't a mantra anymore. It was a map. I folded it once, slid it into my wallet, and let the elevator close over everything that came before. Outside, the city was humming. Street vendors shouting, buses sighing at red lights, people walking fast toward somewhere that mattered to them. I walked slower, letting the noise wash over me. The sky above the towers looked almost the same as it had that morning months ago. Gray, indifferent, infinite. My phone buzzed. A message from the client. Contract signed. Officially on board. Thank you for what you did. I typed back one line. Just told the truth. Hit send. Pocketed the phone. Across the street, in the cafe window, I caught a glimpse of myself. Not the tired man from before. Not the one begging to be heard in rooms built for silence. Just a man who learned that sometimes survival isn't about fighting harder. It's about stepping outside the fire and letting those who built it burn in their own smoke. I didn't hate Lars, not anymore. I didn't hate Jamie either. They were exactly who they were meant to be. Proof that loyalty without integrity is just dependency with better lighting. That night, I slept like someone who didn't owe anyone an explanation. Somewhere in another office, Lars was probably drafting a statement about team restructuring and renewed focus. Jamie was probably rewriting her resume, deleting one bullet point at a time. And the slides, the same slides they'd tried to bury, were now powering a partnership worth 7 figures, clean and transparent, with my fingerprints quietly embedded in the metadata. Karma doesn't make noise when it arrives. It just walks in, signs the handover papers, and smiles politely before turning off the lights.